Radio London.
The school run. The school run.
So whilst you're headed on the school run, I'm really delighted to take you back to the one thing we all remember doing, and that is learning. We're talking about, and really delighted to be speaking to Fahad Siddiqui, who was co-founder of children's book publisher Our Story, to learn about Fatima Al-Fihri, the founder of the world's oldest university in North Africa over 1,000 years ago. Now, the story of this forgotten but hugely significant female scholar is now featured in a series of brand new children's books. And its whole aim is to reflect historical figures from across the world that are not highlighted in the current school curriculum. The group behind the books are a London family, and Fahad Siddiqui, co-founder of children's book publisher Our Story, joins me now. Great to have you on Radio London, Fahad, and thank you for speaking to me today. I've actually got a couple of these books right in front of me. The first one I'm looking at, and I have to say the illustrations are beautiful, illustrated by Emmanuel Colburn, saying Fatima Al-Fihri, founder of the world's oldest university. How do we not know about Fatima then?
Well, hey Shay, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, it's a bit of a wonder how we don't know about so many of these people who've been on this planet before us, and they've kind of been eliminated from the general zeitgeist and the education curriculums kind of globally, not just in the UK. And it's a kind of weird reflection on how society has evolved and adapted, and who gets to get the limelight shone on them when there's been so many examples of people from the past who've done insanely incredible things. I mean, me, myself, when we started this project, didn't know about these figures. I mean, my cousin, who's also part of the group, Sami, who's an English teacher, he asked us if we'd heard of a guy called Mansa Musa a few years ago, just as the pandemic started. And I'd never heard of him, and neither of my brother or my sister. And it turns out the man was effectively the richest man that's ever lived on the earth. Inflation adjusted, his wealth is actually double what Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have today. So it's insane. And he's from Mali. He was an emperor there in the 14th century. And I was just surprised and shocked because my background is in business and real estate, and I went to LSE. Economics has kind of been part and parcel of my world. And to not know about this guy who'd had this insane wealth was surprising to me, especially considering that, I was fortunate enough to attend school, go to higher education, and go through the whole system, both public and private. And at no point were these kinds of figures brought to my attention. And we just came to a conclusion that we have to do something about this. It started off as a passion project to just create these sort of 1.5 minute videos because we realized people had very short attention spans today.
Sure.
So that was the
TikTok
goal
generation,
initially.
isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So first the idea was there, and then we learned that actually it makes more sense to turn this more into an educational tool rather than just an informative one.
Yeah.
Because
it's vitally important, and two key aspects. You talk about these names, Fatima Al-Fihri and Mansa Musa, which I feel we must add into this conversation, just to bring it to what you talk about, being a Londoner, being brought up through the whole kind of English education system. Both of these individuals, people of colour. And both are actually hugely prominent, important figures, as you've just said. One being the founder of the world's oldest university, the other being the richest man in history, hands down. And we even now, I mean, as you're talking, I myself, also a Londoner, born and brought up here, gone through the whole education system, had no idea, if we bring it to more recent times, around, just a simple thing when we talk about World War I, World War II, and the huge contribution made by Commonwealth countries such as India
Correct.
in the support that this small island needed to win those battles, those kind of erased from our history books. Is this a fundamental conversation around the erasure of, you know, people of colour from history and textbooks, and how it seems to be people of colour who are fighting like yourself to bring that context back?
Yeah, it feels that way a little bit, just because this content just doesn't exist in the traditional legacy system curricula that we all have access to and have been taught. The thing is, education as a whole has been something that's been a kind of bedbug for me for a long time, just because I recognize how inefficient and irrelevant the system and the processes are in schools right now in terms of how it trains you for the real world that we live in today, the modern society. We're not trying to create factory workers like we were in the early part of last century, which was the idea and the Fordist model that the school system has followed. This cookie cutter, everyone works in the same year group, and then there's an exam that you have to do by yourself. In real life, you don't work with everyone who's the same age as you, and you don't complete your tasks in isolation. You tend to do them collaboratively with people of all ages. So there's more fundamental issues with the schooling system in terms of how it trains you for this world that we live in today.
Sure.
But part of that is also the social element of it. Today we're in a much more diverse, multicultural reality, not just in terms of the neighborhoods that we live in, but also the fact that we will also live online. We're in this hyper-connected universe today where there's kids playing online games in London with someone from Ghana, you know, or someone from Malaysia within a split second. That kind of interaction never existed before.
Sure.
And now that that's a reality, I feel that it's even more imperative to include this kind of education where people have a better, more global perspective on what the rest of the world can do, has done, is capable of.
It's a fair point. You're referring to, you know, this kind of key term we discussed, which is, you know, around globalization, how social media, definitely the world of the internet, has made the way we interact a lot easier. But it really does mean fundamentally the world is smaller. But for those, though, that kind of just feel it seems to be the same communities harping on about this. I'm going to be very conscious in the way I use my language, but it's an important point to make. It's always people of colour. It's always the black community, the brown community saying, hello, hi, we're here, include us.
Yeah.
Doesn't this need to be a more... Yeah, but doesn't it need to be a conversation for everyone to be involved? Because some people are bored of hearing from us people, the people of colour, just saying, but what about us ethnic minorities? Why are we not in your history textbook? Why are you not talking about us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that. I just know that there is this content that there's a thirst for, not just from individuals from our background, but even those who are from, you know, traditional white, I guess you would say, Caucasian background and ethnicities, because they themselves are living in this same world that we live in, where there's people from all backgrounds as in their neighbors or teaching their kids, or there's this kind of global interaction that's a reality. And the younger generations are the ones who are going to need this kind of training more so, and it's going to make education feel more relevant to them. Right now, if education continues being taught the way it has been, and the systems and the processes remain as they were, people are going to feel even more out of touch with going to school and learning something. I mean, I remember when I was back in school, and you probably as well.
Yeah.
I mean, school is not everyone's favorite thing in the first place. And then on top of that, if the things that you're being taught don't have any relevance to your day-to-day, which is the case in many subjects, that you can talk about maths and everything. But in terms of its practical applications, there's a need for content within the system to reflect what the reality is of the world today and going forward. It's not like we're going backwards. The internet's not going to be erased off the face of the world. We're all going to remain super hyper connected. There's going to be another TikTok or some other version of these things. And the people who are going to benefit and thrive the best are those who are most adapted and most educated in the global reality of everything, not this isolated, one-dimensional kind of curricula that we seem to be continuously pushing down the throats of the kids today.
It's an interesting point you make.
Sense.
It's a very interesting point you make. As you're talking, actually, I've got to say, Fahad, I'm thinking of only last week. Huge news, I would say, from a feminist perspective. It didn't really actually make the papers. Those people who know about her were talking about it, but and we talked about it here in Radio London. Growing up, whenever I heard the term feminism, in my mind as a brown woman, I always equated that to the white women who fought for us to vote. And that, to me, it was a white feminist movement. And last week, a blue plaque was unveiled at Hampton Court of Sophia Dalip Singh, the goddaughter of Queen Victoria, a brown woman, a South Asian woman, the daughter of Maharaja Dalip Singh, who actually was the Kim Kardashian of her time. She was at the forefront of the suffragette movement. These are the people, and she was a Londoner, who we do not read about in our textbooks. And so for me as a mum, look, my 5-year-old daughter's in school, and I realise quite, fundamentally the education system she's going to go through is what I went through, which means she ain't going to see people that look like me and her in the books because they aren't there. People like Sophia Dalip Singh. So for you, getting this book out there, let's refer back to these books. Fatima Al-Firi, or Fatima Al-Firi, depending on how you pronounce the name, founder of the world's oldest university. You've got these books out there now. Students such as my daughter should be knowing about individuals like Fatima. What's the hope with these books? Are you now trying to get them out to London schools, to schools across the country?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've actually it's accelerated a bit faster than we anticipated. We're already talking to some educational groups that have schools internationally.
Wow.
And because they're usually private schools, fortunately or unfortunately or whatever, but they have a bit more of a forward agenda. They are actually integrating multiculturalism and EDI, which is ethnic diversity and inclusion, into their school programs more. So they've actually allocated resources to, purchase
getting
content,
these kind of books.
The stuff that
right.
Exactly. But the thing is, these kinds of books don't exist. This content for younger generation kids isn't really there. All of this information is online, but it's not really written in a way that's accessible to the youth. It's a very, the language is a bit more complex and the pronunciations are strange. So having some content that is a bit more digestible for the youth is something that's lacking. So our goal is not just the schools, but also just parents in general. Like you're saying, you yourself, it would be nice to have a story that you can share with your own kid if it's at bedtime. And it actually brings up an amazing set of questions. That's why we've created these activity books and discussion points at the end of the books.
Love the activity books. My daughter loves a bit of colouring and kind of the bullet points. And it's like, to me, these books wouldn't look out of place in my daughter's school library. The kind of books that she brings home, which I think is, I loved the tile design. Create your own tile design. It says, as I'm looking at this here, around the tiles and the floors in the courtyard of the University of Al Qarawiyya. I hope I'm saying that correct.
Al Qarawiyya, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's hard to, but there's also there's henna drawings and stuff, and there's also a bunch of questions
love a bit of henna.
Exactly, and I think it's a great addition to the education that we're putting out there in the world today. And we think that kids today should learn all of these things and find ways that are interactive and engaging for that to happen. That's why we've done what we've done. And
talking about the real tangible difference, parents who are tuned into Radio London, if you're part of the PTA, if you're part of the PA, the Parents Association in school, Parents Teachers Associations in school, you can suggest, these kind of books to be added into the school libraries. You can suggestions. No one's asking to start, placards outside school saying, why aren't you educating this? But there's a kind of a formidable way. There's a way of it being inclusive and for parents to feel that they're involved in their child's education. So the important thing, Fahad, here, of course, how do people get the books? What's the best way for them to get these books?
You can find them on our website, ourstory.media. And it will direct you to a bunch of different links, whichever's most convenient for you. But we're on Amazon as well. So if you just search Our Story Media, we should pop up. And right now they're affordable. They're below £10 each book. And also with the purchase of every book, we have a partnership with CAMFED, which is a very big organization that provides education to underprivileged girls in Africa. Beautiful thing about CAMFED is that it's a big organization. However, the people running it today are the same girls who used to be taught there 40 years ago when it first started.
Isn't that amazing?
So it's a very
wow, it's come around full circle, hasn't it?
Exactly.
That is
so
amazing.
we love working with them, and they're doing great work. And obviously, it's all within the education space, and they believe in what we do. We believe in what they do. So you buy a book from us, you help educate an underprivileged girl in Africa as well.
Let me give that charity name again. Very important. CAMFED, CAMFED, the Campaign for Female Education. Lovely speaking to you today, Fahad. This isn't going to be the first of, I'm sure there's going to be an array of many books. So will you come back on Radio London? And can I ask a request? Look into Sophia Dalip Singh, please. I would love one of those to be created so I can, pass it on to my nieces and nephews. I'm not surprised. I guarantee you do. That's the one thing is it's not a lack of there being these people in history. They're out there. It's having the time, I guess, to create them. Let me give that website. Ourstory.media is the website. Ourstory.media. The books, all of them that we've just mentioned. You mentioned there also Mansa Musa, The Richest Man in History, Fatima Al-Fihri, F-I-H-R-I, by the way, founder of the world's oldest university. And as you mentioned, love the activity book. Honestly, I love stuff like this. Ourstory.media for further details, and Amazon. Thank you for joining me today. Great speaking to you. Come into the studio next time, please, Fahad. Lovely to have you here on Radio London. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Fahad Siddiqui, co-founder of children's book publisher Our Story. I really enjoyed that chat. It's an important one, isn't it? As parents, we try to encourage our children to learn all different aspects of history as well. But how much do we know about our own actual British history? How inclusive is that? If you want to weigh on that conversation, please do. 81333, start the message of London.